I had this on a PowerPoint I gave at an RPM meet, and I use, for those person things, I use transitions between the slides, and similar slides I'll stack and use automation between just to make a more pleasing presentation, but it doesn't work so good on Zoom. So I had to take all the slides, move them to a new, copy them and paste them into a new PowerPoint, and then remove all of the either transitions or automations from them. So it's kind of a pain in the ass, but it should go okay, I think. The buttons in the door. Okay, this is from an email on one of the IO groups. This is being recorded, so you can read this at your leisure later on. But it talks about traffic in 40s and 50s era. The best part of it was that the acceptance to what was going on, mainly on branch lines. And on the branch line that I model, many of the photographs have company cars in them, way larger percentage than you would see on the bridge traffic or secondary main lines. So the cars on a branch line are they're dedicated cars. It's a closed system. They're there because they need to be. You know, if you want to model the favorite car that you've bought at the shop last week, you want to put in a through train. Well, there aren't any. These are all shorts, as they call them. Right here in Iowa, on the line that goes, that I'm modeling, the railroad that I'm modeling, there were 4 branch lines that I could have chosen. I ended up picking the Forest City one, Story City one, simply because of this photo. That switching on that hump track was a big sell for me. This is the layout that I built. The branch line would have come out of Marshalltown, Iowa, which is the staging. It goes through several little burgs, finally gets to Ziering, which is a worthwhile station to model. Then to Roland. I skipped McCallsburg for obvious reasons that I'm not going to talk about, and ended at Story City. So a normal run of the train would be from, you'd leave Marshalltown, run through, set out at Ziering, set out at Roland, do your business at Story City, then come back and spot your customers at Roland and at Ziering. This all took place in 8 or 10 hour shift, 16 hours at the most. Have to know your customers. This doesn't matter whether it's a branch line or a class 1 double track, a triple track system. You have to know what customers there were on your line, or at least if you're making them up, what they should be doing. You know, you need to know what cars should be coming in and what cars should be going out and what should be in them. Here is just a rundown of those 3 towns that I modeled. The information at the bottom where the arrows are coming from is from the 1936 Emmons St. L Directory of Industries. Most railroads had these Directory of Industries, and they're very, very helpful. I've got copies of the Great Western one, and I borrowed a copy recently of 1943 Milwaukee one. Very helpful, and especially if you're doing any kind of waybill where you need to know the origins of the loads. Very important. Here's the next town. This is Roland. These pictures were taken in probably late 60s, early 70s. So there's stuff here that wasn't here at the time I model, and some of the stuff might be gone. In Story City, I blanked out the Standard Oil dealer because I never could figure out where it was. And the automobile people that they talk about, there was a ramp built just to unload cars off to the right from this slide. Another thing that's very helpful are city and county directories. They'll give you all the businesses, so you know what's going to. There's a DX dealer there in Story City. Aaron's Implement get to John Deere franchise. Oops, went the wrong way. Hagelin Produce. This was their main building was in Roland, but you can see they had a distributor in Story City. The one thing interesting is a hardware store. They're going to get in LCL stuff, or they could, if you remember in the old days, they used to have carload sales, where you would get a boxcar in of Maytag washers and dryers, and or I don't know if they had washers at the time or dryers, but anyway, they would sell them out of the boxcar at a reasonable rate. This is probably one of the more important things I put together over time. For a branch line, it lists in the rural areas of Grain Belt, it lists the basic customers that you would have on the line and what they received or what they shipped. And what's kind of interesting here is that 90% of this stuff is an inbound load. But if you were to take the carloads inbound versus outbound, you would probably have more outbound carloads just because of the grain up here. I'm going to show some information that was taken from 4 different lists. One for Fairfax, Minnesota, Seal Book, Ace book from Dallas Center, Iowa, and a conductor's log, basically from I can't think. Anyway, in southeastern Minnesota, and the Lemesser was the main mechanical engineer on the MSNL, and he did some records of setouts. So it's basically an overview of what would have been on the railroad. But we'll use that information because that's what we have. If you look here, there we go, Winthrop down to Spencer. Actually, they stopped at Esterville. That train, 1661, ran between Winthrop and Esterville on the secondary line that came off at Winthrop and went down to Des Moines. Dallas Center is on that, north of Des Moines, suburb nowadays. And Fairfax is on the line and heads out toward South Dakota. These are the customers from the 2 towns. And you can see that even though the population is about the same, there was a lot more customers at Fairfax than there was at Dallas Center. And if we look at reefers, the bottling company at Fullerton Bottling at Fairfax received and shipped bottles in probably beer coming in and empty bottles going back to Milwaukee, most likely. And also what was interesting about Fairfax in the 47, 48 information was LCL meat, where I suppose the local grocers would come down and take what they ordered from the packing house out of the reefer, and it would be resealed again and sent on. Coal. There were only 2 places that received coal and hoppers, 1 in each town. If we look at tank cars, what's in red would be customers that got in distillate. The green is molasses, the maroon is asphalt, and all the black would be your standard gasoline and oils. This here shows you for basically for 1 year, the carloads out of blue is Dallas Center, red is Fairfax, and my own would be in the green. And you can see that the reefers were at Fairfax, but not at Dallas Center. And hoppers were minimal. Most cars were minimal, except for box cars, of course. If we look at, went that way, I gotta go the other way again. I take my finger off the button, I can't see it anymore. So if we look at flat cars, rough lumber it was delivered to all 3 towns. Poles were delivered to Zering, and there were unloading platforms at Zering and Story City. Here's a flat car on the line that was empty, and an X29 Pennsylvania. If you model this time period, you model the Pennsylvania. This is the Landmesser set out records that we're going to take some information from. As you can see, there's quite a bit of information just on poles, tractors, and lumber. These are flat car loads. So you can see what railroads had flat cars that were actually being bridged on the M and St. L for the most part. This is my roster of flat cars in 20 and now in 22. And the only change has my roster is always a bit fuzzy. Things come and they go. We lost the NCL CL Tichy kit, but we've had a resin Rock Island flat car. I've got some pictures of some loads of that rough lumber on flat cars. This is the Owl Mountain load. I bought this and put it together for my other layout, but on this layout, being it's a branch line, I didn't catch one of the I missed a transition or something. I cut the loads down because the lumber yards would only get in so much. And this is that car that's been sold. Poles, again, earlier there was a Seaboard 47,000 series. Here there's a Seaboard 47,000 series. And it just so happens that Chad Boaz makes a Seaboard 47,000 series, and I have one. This is a Penske X, whatever they're called, F30s. This is from long ago on my other layout before static grass. None of these cars are on the railroad anymore. On the present layout, one of the customers there at Zering was a utility company. So I took the liberty of adding a pole yard on the layout so we could unload poles there. Tractors was another one. You can see this M St. L car with a load of Ford tractors made it all the way to the southeast. This is back at the Minneapolis Moline plant up in Minneapolis. Milwaukee car being loaded with tractors. This is the 47,000 series Seaboard car with an insane load of Sunshine tractors. Each one of these tractors has at least 30 parts. And as soon as you got done building these damn things, Lifelike came out with their Farmall tractor, and Oddballs made the decals for them. Could have got ready to run tractors, put decals on them for about a third of the money and in about a tenth of the time. What I did with that particular car was I left the chocks on the car. And the reason I did that, if you look at the Jim Sands photo in Marshalltown down at the bottom, you can see an articulated Great Western car with the chocks left on it. Here we're looking at a couple of Northwestern flat cars. The top one is the Sunshine model. The bottom one is Red Caboose model. Excuse me, I'm going the wrong way. I put a picture in here of a tractor without a load. Didn't. The top load is the same chocks that Sunshine gave you with those other resin pieces that came with those tractor kits. The bottom one, I made these chocks out of scrap wood from a laser cut station and glued them to the wheels of the tractor. So when you take the chocks stay with it. Here's a couple of combines being unloaded. On the left is a ramp. You can barely see it. This is up at probably Rochester, Minnesota, on the Great Western. Something you wouldn't see maybe once on branch line would be these caterpillars. This is Sunshine Kit on a Sunshine car. These would be more at home on a through train. Gondolas, we get coal in gondolas. In Iowa, gondolas were king for coal. And here's a list off the landmass list of gondolas with coal. And you can see basically the CB&Q, L&N, and the local railroads were the biggest carriers. On my layout, I had a C1 was gone, and I've replaced it with New York Central and a couple of Milwaukee's. Coal was also graded. As you can see here, there's two gondolas with two different sizes of coal in it. It got information that actually goes into what they were called. I remember one size is called egg. It was labor intensive to empty the car. This one here is a car hole that's a GS gun being emptied from the bottom. I mean, a car of sand, but you can see the size of the car to the people. This is kind of a blurry photo, but it shows a guy starting to unload a gondola into a coal shed. A friend of mine knew a guy that used to do that back in the 50s. And he said he would throw the coal out of the car until it got down to the bottom. And that way he could use a scoop to scoop this, the coal, shovel it up and put it into the bins. More efficient way, this is at the Sherbeed in Mason City, rebuilt Milwaukee gun being unloaded with a clamshell. This is a really neat photo that from Soft Marty. He was riding on a Monad passenger train. And I really like that Wabash gondola. Well, it just so happens that F&C sells that kit. So I bought one. And after a while, I don't know, I got tired of it, sold it. Then I liked it, so I bought another one. And I still have this one. Here's a train going to Story City. They abandoned Story City early on. One of the reasons was the lack of business. You know, you're running there with just one car. But it was a steel car, could have been a Northwestern car. This one, I believe, the bottom one, I believe, if it's not a Sunshine Kit, it's AccuRail, and AccuRail's grab irons are not, there's not enough of them, and they're in the right places. So you shave them off and replace them. This is a gun by Jerry Hamsmith. This one's given to me. I think it's because it's slightly warped, but my wife says I'm warped, so we get along well. This was an early one he did with molded on grabs, and it was lazy and left grabs on it. I see one, I know that's a red caboose model, no longer have that. The Emmett St. Nell had a lot of GS guns, but like 47. And this is being done in 3D printed. I don't know how far out it is yet, but it will be available in somebody's future. This is a photo taken at Story City behind the depot, and you can see USRA gondolas belonging to the Emmett St. Nell. Well, this one is a lifelike Proto 1000, I think they're called. I like them better than the Intermountain car, and I just replaced the grab irons on the side and pretty much left the end alone. This is a 50-foot Milwaukee car with a load of pipe. You know, pipes on branch lines, again, would be very seldom. Cities would be doing work, or counties doing something for road fill. The scrap would be more, you could have a scrap dealer on branch line for sure. And again, rough cut lumber in gondola. Logs, you mean shipping. I know a friend of mine worked for the Milwaukee, And he says they used to sell stumps or carry, they would carry stumps that were going to Germany to be made into cuckoo clocks. So this might have been some valuable wood, walnut, oak or something, going to a mill somewhere. Tank cars. There were 3 oil dealers in Ziering, 1 in Roland, and possibly 2 in Story City, but not knowing, I didn't model either one. As you can see, this is from the Landmesser list. Most of the oil or liquid material came General American or Union cars. Now this is a nice list from, I think this is from Dallas Center, but it shows you consignor where these car loads came from. So you can look at, if you have a Champion oil dealer, you can build that car out of Colorado City, Texas. This shows my cars. I don't have as many as I once had. I'm trying to get, I've got more Union tank cars when Rapido brings them in. They finally made the X3, so that'll take over, dominate my flat car fleet or my tank car fleet. This is an early Union tank car. I made this car out of the Roundhouse old timers, and I used a 3D printed beam down the center beam, and they make a 3D printed walkway too, but I couldn't find it, so I just made this one out of styrene and used ladders from Southern Card Foundries kit leftovers. Tangent makes a really neat little 3-dome tank car, and here's one on the trolley here in Mason City. I have a Sinclair oil dealer, and this is the car that Tangent made. Mobile. I have a mobile. This is just a out of the box, or it might have been a kit or raid run. I don't remember. Proto car. You can also use cars, like we mentioned, from asphalt, only they didn't really haul asphalt in the car. They hauled oil portion of the asphalt. And this was here in town, down on by the Rock Island Team Tracks, their freight houses in the distance. But this was doing either some resurfacing and in all of these tank cars with Rust-Oleum to be used on the roads. Here's one in western Minnesota, in a rural community where they're just putting oil on the road, used oil. And you can see the same, this machine that's here is a pump and it's a heater. So it's making heat, and they're putting that in the car in order to get the material out. And then they're it's being pumped into his truck, and he can spread that on the roads. So you don't need a special spot for an asphalt type car. Here's one sitting across from the depot road. Another thing I saw interesting was those train lists for train 60 and 61. There were always cars of hides on there, and there's no packing houses within miles, and couldn't figure it out. And finally, I looked somewhere and found that there was a rendering plant nearby. So the hides were coming from a rendering plant. And at Ziering, Central Iowa Rendering Plant. So you could have a tank car. This was an armor tank car that was left over from the armor plant on my other railroad. And we use it for the rendering people to bring in truckloads of grease from leftovers from the animals to the car with. Box cars would be loaded with hides, but they'd have to be designated hide cars. Open hoppers, coal again. We have canneries, they would take coal. We also have aggregate and cement. It's a picture of a train on the line with a coal hopper, and I can't identify what road it is. But here's a list of the coal from that landmaster list. And you can see most of it is in company cars. But if you pick out others, CNIM, IC, LNN, you know, regular coal, New York Central, Pennsylvania, and Wabash, stuff that you would think would be in the coal fields. My list of cars has changed somewhat. What's interesting is now I have a D&H hopper, and that's what this car is. I don't know it. You know, I couldn't figure out what this car was. You can see Pennsy X31 behind the engine, so we are modeled in the Pennsy. And I put this on the IO group, and they said, "Well, that's a Sealy hopper." Well, it just so happens that F&C makes a really nice and easy to build Sealy hopper kit, so I have one on the layout. This hopper is from the late Stan Rodarowitz. He took an Athearn car and had pockets for the panels laser cut out, so the car's not open on the inside. Here's a car of aggregate at being delivered. And these are cars of cement. And notice again, they're all home road cars. The top one is a potash car hopper from the Santa Fe. I believe that car is made by KD. And this would be about the late 50s, would be about the time potash started coming in a hopper car. I lost one of my M&St. hoppers. I'm down to 3. The one that I had, this is the one that I no longer have. It was kind of interesting in that it's a regular, what they call a 1958 because of the cubic feet. And it has even space hatches on the roof. I have a fertilizer dealer, so we're getting in phosphate from down southeast, and we're getting in potash. Refrigerator cars, they're going to go to the cannery and to the produce company. And this is kind of an interesting stuff. This is from a different list of, it's a incoming way bills list. So I don't have outgoing loads, but I know exactly what came in to this Green Giant cannery. And you can study this at your leisure later on, but it's kind of interesting stuff. Again, these are cars of goods. You see art cars, fruit growers, the standard normal reefer companies. I had my reefer population has been trimmed down some. The PFE cars were all gone because I didn't want to listen to how they were in dedicated service. So I just eliminated them. I think I still have the Santa Fe car. Don't know why that's not on the order list. One car that would, one of the Union cars would be leased to the M&St. L. And here's one of the merchant dispatch cars. And here are 2 of them on the layout. The Union tank car or Union reefer is a Sunshine Kit, and the MDT car is an Acura car with Trey miniature roof on it. Box cars, there goes without saying, they are everywhere on the railroad. And like I said before, the predominance on the branch line were home road cars. And I believe that was because they were hauling grain and it was probably going to a mill that was on the railroad. So the railroad was getting all the money, these shipments, and using their own cars to do it. This is a Dallas Center information for lumber in box cars, and shows you where it originally came from, which is great information. Here's one from that Green Giant plant that tells you exactly how many bags of tin cans were in each of the cars and where they came from. This one here is a list of my box cars. It changes all the time. I got more box cars now than I did when I did that. But this will change all the time. I did some what I call mental masturbation, and I divided the country up into 4 segments. And I looked through the Dallas Center and Fairfax list to come up with cars from each of these 4 quadrants. And then I had, I put my cars to match. Well, my cars don't match at all. And so I've got to do some rearranging to get these more in line with the other actual cars. The reason there's 7 heavily on the Northwest is because that's where my railroad is located, and I have a lot of road cars. As I said before, taking a look at Fairfax and Dallas Center, they're within 250 miles of each other. But their grain shipments would change a lot. If we look here, you're looking at feed-in, bill materials. These are all boxcar loads. Miscellaneous, grain out, and you see a lot more at Fairfax, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And also coal in, hardly any in Dallas Center. If we look at what was in the grain cars, notice that 250 miles separated by climate more than anything, and ground, type of ground. And you can see that in Minnesota, they grew a whole lot more crops than I have. I was just corn and beans at the time, but you can see Minnesota grew a lot more different crops. So therefore they had a lot more carloads. I went the wrong way again, excuse me. Some examples of cars. This is the Rock Island car. I've got a son kit of this car to build. It's got feed in it, in and out. This one here is building material. I like this photo because this Baltimore and Ohio car, the X53 or M353, got away from them and ran across the street, crashed through a wall, and they're trying to pull it back. But in the background is this Mopac car full of lumber. Here's a Georgia car with the lumber. When I was I have a friend that when he was a kid, he used to go to the works here in town on weekends because he was a skinny guy, and they throw him up in the top of the car, and they work and work and work to get the boards out of the car, like messing around with pickup sticks. And once he got a few layers out, then it was easy to unload the rest of the car. And he said he remembered that it was extremely hot in the top of the car, but smelled really good. Then they came up with easy open box cars, and it changed everything. Cement. You're going to get a lot of cement into basically the lumber yards, and for the most part. This is carloads of flour. I'm not sure if you get I a whole lot carload of flour in. I know a friend of mine on the Alcator branch on the Milwaukee would say that they would deliver a carload of flour once a month to Alcator, and he never could figure out why. Well, I have some relatives that through marriage that live there, and there's a bakery there that's a really big operation, so they would be the ones using the flour. Also, if you have a bakery in your town that's a substantial size, they could get a car on the team track. This is canned goods. Again, they're putting them in box cars instead of reefers here. Beer, very important. Can't live without that. Grain, that was the big business. Here's a car at Stewartville, Minnesota, getting the grain door put in. And what's interesting here is our grain door laying in the lower right, and this tractor has on the back of it, where the hitch is, there's a box that's full of tools that you can't see in this picture. And then the bucket on the front for the guys to get in and out as they cooper the car. In later years, they would use paper grain doors. Here they're using the bucket on the tractor to help close the door. This is showing in wartime era, you've got a lot of single sheath cars, a single sheath boxcar, single sheath hopper gondola. And after the war, you're looking at steel cars. And notice how the things have changed. The cars are all the same height. They all look the same from the outside, basically. You might as well run Athearn cars, but that's why I prefer the earlier, when you have stair steps of different car heights, different materials. But right now, my list in 2020, I had 25 composite cars and 30 steel. So I was doing what I should be doing from 48 to 50. And that's the end of that. Thank you for watching. Are there any questions? Is anybody still awake?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Clark.
Yes. Thank you, Clark. That was a great presentation.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was, thanks. Yeah, I said something. I was looking for something and come up with this. So it was educational, and you can, I think Greg will put it online tomorrow, and then you can study some of these maps if you want to, some of these lists that I made.
I do have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
You have mentioned, let me turn my video on. You have mentioned that something about the Pennsy. You mentioned the Pennsy a lot. Was there a lot of Pennsy cars out there?
Thousands, millions.
Well, I mean, typical of the Pennsy.
Yes, if there was an old saying that if you're a model railroader, you model the Pennsy, because as you can see in those two photos, just random pictures that Bill Lannister took. There's Pennsy cars. There's an X29, and I'll have to go down here and I'll remember where the other one was.
Oh, that's okay. I understand. I modeled the Pennsy, and I'm doing I'm doing a M&E train. Do you know what that is?
No.
Mail and Express.
Okay.
And those mail trains went coast to coast. The cars, the express cars that were in them, went coast to coast. They went everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an amazing, and including their Pennsy baggage cars that were used for storing stuff. It was just an amazing thing that they would go out on some of these little branch lines and be photographed.
Yeah, I remember as a kid down in Marshalltown, the Northwestern streamliners would come through town, and they would not be all green and yellow. There would be other railroads' cars stuck in there, and it would irritate the piss out of me when I was a kid. Why can't that train be alike? And nowadays I understand why it's not alike.
Sure.
These cars, there was a lot of switching done with that type of train too, at different towns, picking up and setting out different cars.
P&W was great for tying their express cars on the back end of a passenger train.
Yeah.
And when they come through a town, they cut it off and go on their way, and then the local switch engine would put it over by the depot, and they'd unload it and tack it on another train going the other way.
Yeah, there was the Great Western passenger train out of the Twin Cities that went down Omaha. There was always a UP Express car on that train, boxcar. I have a C&EI Express boxcar that I was given. And Intermountain made the model, and they didn't quite get the colors right, but anyway, it was a gift. And in order to use it, I had to change the ends and replace the trucks, and because that Intermountain is a generic company, especially in boxcars. Most people don't care. they look at that a boxcar is a boxcar. But when you get into it, it's just like the people, more modern people that model hopper cars. If you sit at a grade crossing nowadays, the tank cars all look alike, the hopper cars look alike, but they're not. There's differences between them.
I went to school in Blair, Nebraska, Dana College, and every so often the feed dealer or whatever he was would call up and ask for one of the guys to come and help unload a car with some sort of a feed or whatever. And I did that a couple of times, and I had such an asthmatic attack.
How bad?
That was terrible. But they wanted it moved. But because I had worked for the C&W and Proviso, I knew how to move that car to another location for them. You know, just knock the brakes off, and then all the guys that were out there, we got at one end and started pushing, and then somebody would tie the brake back on.
Yeah, there was when I was doing research for my previous railroad, I was talking to a guy at work for the co-op, and he said his first day on the job, he had to unload a boxcar of metal fence posts. And these things were bundled in groups of maybe 20. And then they were all stuck together inside the car. And they figured if he got that car unloaded, he was good enough to keep as an employee, you know, because nowadays you'd have probably had to hire 15 different people to get the car unloaded, because they'd be in there for 10 minutes and say, screw this, you know.
Right.
And there was a different time. Yeah, so I got through that in a hurry, didn't I?
Yeah, great job. Great job.
And your batteries lasted.
Yeah, they should go an hour. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, we're in good shape. I have something to show everybody if you're done, Clark.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll get rid of this.
And so I'm going to do a presentation for the division on Saturday on this, but this is now this is the directory for all these videos that we've done over the last year and a half or so. And it's pretty simple. All you do is if you put in here, you know, put in Ron's name or something like that, and it'll search the presenter and the title and bring you back what you're looking for. So it's organized by date. It's kind of bare bones, but it'll get you to these videos. So I'm going to start putting this link at the bottom of our communications, and if you bookmark it, then you can always come here, and these will start showing up in here. I'll still send out a link to everybody on the email, but then if you're looking for one of the old ones, the videos are between my YouTube and the division's YouTube channels, and so this makes it easy to find them all. And so all you do is just click on the link here, and it'll open up the video. I don't know which one I picked here, but high pressure dome cars from July 15th. And off you go.
Okay.
So
you probably should delete the first half dozen, because they, you know, the learning curve on here was pretty steep. We were pretty duncy at the beginning of this.
Yeah, well, they're at the bottom, and some of them I did leave off on the earlier ones, but anyway, I just wanted to show everybody that. So like I say, I'll start including that link when I send this stuff out, and that way a few people have asked me to send them. You know, I had it in a spreadsheet, and that was working for a while, but it's getting a little cumbersome to try to find everything. So hopefully that'll make things easier. I hope to also put some stuff in there with the, you know, so you can either subscribe or unsubscribe from the list and all that stuff. But, you know, it's just something I'm doing when I'm not working on the railroad. So I don't often get to it. But anyway, thanks everybody for coming. Clark, thanks very much for the presentation. It was great as always. We do not have anybody on the schedule going forward. And so there's a lot of people who are willing to do this, and but it's also a great opportunity for some people that maybe haven't done a lot of presenting to try their hand at it. So don't be shy. It's a very supportive group, and we are all here because we enjoy model railroading and prototype railroading and all that stuff. So let me know if you want to get on the schedule, and I'll put you on there. And like I say, it's a great opportunity to get your feet wet. Zoom, the pandemic has kind of forced us into this situation where we're using Zoom a lot. I don't think Zoom is going anywhere. This turns out to be a good way to share information across the country and have a little fun. So we'll continue to do this as long as people are interested, and see where it takes us. So,
thanks for doing this, Greg.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that'll close it for tonight. Thanks everybody for joining, and I will post the video, like Clark said, sometime tomorrow, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Okay, see you at the next op session.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
So long, everybody.
Thanks, Greg and Clark.
Bye-bye.
Bye.